Hey people in YouTube land, Zach Hall here. I want to bring you guys another Bible review. And today we're going to be looking at the Thomas Nelson, and this is actually their old style paragraph King James edition. And so I want to show you this one. This is pretty cool because I love their font in this and also the layout. I'm going to compare it to their new single column Bible. Now they haven't done a single column paragraph yet, so it'll be a little bit different. But this was a classic that Thomas Nelson released. Really, probably like the late 90s. Someone could probably help me out here. Late 90s to the mid 2000s, I think, is about when this was printed as far as its run. But man, I really wish they would bring this back, especially in this font. And I think I'm gonna show you why. I think this font is a little bit better than their new font, even though their new font's really good. It's very bold and easy to read. I think there's some cool things about this Bible. So first, I found this at a used bookstore, completely pretty much brand new. I mean, there's not a scratch on the gilding. There's no writing in this besides mine. I've written in it since I've owned it. It looked like it was maybe lightly used, but never seriously used. So it comes in this faux kind of navy and stitched cover. I mean, as far as the cover, it's not really that impressive. It's got some pretty basic end sheets there. On the spine, it's just dry stamped into it. So Holy Bible, Thomas Nelson, and their logo. Comes with one silver ribbon marker. Head and tail bands are silver and blue, and then you have silver gilding. There is no art gilding there. And then getting into this guy, you have a presentation page, title page. So you can see they don't really list their copyright on this Bible. They just have the reading plan and the concordance. But I think, if I read this correctly, this printing was 2017, and this was the 10th printing. So they printed it up at least until 2017. So here you have a contents page, Old Testament, New Testament, and then the back you have some extras. So you have your read your Bible through in a year, 30 days of Jesus, 90-day overview of the Bible, passages for the Christmas season, passage for the Easter, and then concordance to the King James Version. Here you have the abbreviations of the books. Here's the formatting and footnotes. So this just kind of gives you an idea of the Greek and Hebrew things that they put in here. Also, this is interesting. He says the footnotes are also derived from the Cambridge Paragraph Bible. All footnotes by the original translators of 1611 edition King James Version are included. Important and useful footnotes from later editions are included in square brackets. And then the poetry setting of this follows the groundbreaking formatting of the Cambridge Paragraph Bible of 1873. So it's a pretty cool layout. Epistle dedicatory, Old Testament title page, and then you get into the text. So this, I should have got my Cambridge Clarion, but I almost prefer the layout of this better than the Cambridge Clarion. Now, obviously the paper is not as good. This is printed in the United States, this edition was. You can see some ghosting there and things like that. For the most part, it is line matched throughout here, but there are definitely parts where it's not. But you can see this text. What I love about this is it's not as bold as their new font. And I think what that does is really, it kind of helps your eyes after a while. So I love the boldness of this font, their new one. I mean, it looks great. It definitely makes the font bigger and appear more readable. But if you're just reading this for long periods of time, you can really get tired of the thickness of the letters. So I just really like how kind of thin, this is still black, it's still dark, so it's very readable, but it's just not as bolded. Another thing I really like about this is the verse numbers are actually a really great size in the text. So they're not super tiny like the Clarion, so if you wanted to preach from a Bible like this, you could. And I did. So this has great verse markings where you're not going to be squinting your eyes to find something. It does have paragraph headers in the text, so it does not have a running page header. So that's kind of the same as their new single column. Now again, this is a verse by verse edition, and this is really well done. This is one of the, I think, the best formats of a single column King James that there is. Thomas Nelson did a great job with that. But this thing is a blast from the past, so it's really cool. So you guys see this. This is actually black letter too. We'll get in the poetry section here. Show you guys. Poetry section is really done well. Love how it's laid out. The lines, the stanzas, stuff, they're not too far out. They're very readable. And this also opens it up. What I love about poetry sections too when it's done well is this opens it up for notes everywhere. So you could take notes on this side of the page, take notes on this side of the page, and you can put in a lot more notes than you can in the narrative sections of this book. So like you're here, you can't take as many notes in the body of the text. So you can see the other thing that's nice about this is this has bolded chapter and paragraph summary. So you can find these really quick. So if you're looking for the chapter or the paragraph heading, you can find these really quick on any page to be able to reference something really quick. So if you're in a Bible study or you're trying to remember a passage, like these definitely help as you're flipping through here looking for things. So you can see it has some of the translators' footnotes at the bottom. And then they also have added in their own footnotes for Greek and Hebrew and different things like that, or helpful alternatives of renderings. Now we'll get to the New Testament here. And again, I'll show you this is not red letter. And see, the thing I love about this format too is that throughout the entire Old Testament, it spaces things accordingly. So this is more poetic form, so it's not in a narrative. And they do this really well in the New Testament as well, which is rare because a lot of times the New Testament is just put into a narrative format. But you'll see as we go throughout this. Now this does not have self-pronunciation, but it is black letter. So you can see here in the Beatitudes, okay, these are blocked off in a different type of format than the rest of the sermon. So it's very easy to identify these and find them. I really like that. The paragraphs also are broken up really well. So that way, I mean, you're not reading like a very long chunk of text in a paragraph that feels like it's just a run-on sentence. They did a really good job of breaking this up. And now the only thing that I have really against this is it is a glue-bound binding. So it's not smice sewn. And you can definitely see that when you get to the back of this book. It just does not want to lay as flat. Now I'll say for glue-bound, it lays flat pretty well. But you can see we're here in Revelation, which is good. We're at the end of the book, but it just wants to close. And you can see this hinge too where it's glued. And then it just wants to break about right here down this part. So they glued this really well, but that does make it sometimes in the back and the front you're not going to get to lay down super flat. So I'd love to see this come out again, but with the sewn binding, because like if you're in here in Genesis, for example, they don't have as much material in the front. So in the first parts of Genesis, you're not going to get this guy to stay open. And that's just due to how severe that hinge is, really. But, I mean, all in all, this is a great Bible to hold in the hand. You can see, just look at that font. It is so clean and clear. It's well done. And then here you have the bolded references. So you could look at the bottom of the page and find out what notes are in what verse, but they also do have tiny markers here. So you can see that in verse 12, you can see the C. So there, 44:12, C. So it's pretty cool. Now this is not a reference Bible, so all the footnotes are textual in nature. So, but what I love about this is it could be a reader's, but you could also preach out of this just as easy because of how they laid it out. Again, you don't have a crazy amount of a big block of paragraph. The verse numbers are perfect size. I mean, even here you can pretty quickly identify where the verse numbers are. And I'm holding this behind the camera. I mean, I can find these really quick. So I really like that. I love the Clarion, but one thing about it is when you're preaching, sometimes it can be hard to find verse numbers. And I know the Clarion's not really built for preaching, but it's such a great text that sometimes I like to preach from it. So let's get to the back here. So the New Testament, again, all red letter, no self-pronunciation. Books do start on a new page. So you do have some space to take notes there. In that the book, or at the end of this, we have a couple helpful things. So, and I'm a big fan of having Bible reading plans in the back. I think they should be in every Bible. So here is their reading plan. I don't think this has changed much, even in their new editions. But that's a read through the Bible in a year plan. This is 30 Days with Jesus. So this takes you through the Gospels and takes you through the main events of Christ's life, his death and resurrection. This is a 90-day overview of the Bible. So this takes you through the Old and New Testament, so you can kind of get the overarching theme of the Bible. Then you have passages for the Christmas season. This is pretty cool. So you could use this like in family devotions around the table if you have kids, or even if you don't. Maybe if you're single or if you're married, you guys could read these together. But they've got some just scriptures here that you could read. And they have the same thing then for Easter as well. And then you get a concordance. Concordance is a pretty small type. It's probably like the non-bolded section is probably about a 5 or 6 point type. The bolded is probably close to a 7.5 maybe. Double column. Entries are pretty easy to read, so you've got the bolded word followed by the references under it, and then you know it ends because you have the next bolded word. So I mean, I like how it's laid out. It's a very clean concordance, but the font is relatively small. Now, as far as finding these, and again, this doesn't have any maps, it's going to be hard. So like I said, I found this at my old my bookstore, CPO, Redeemed in Springfield. And they have awesome stuff that comes in. People bring in some cool things, and this is where I found this. So I picked it up. So if you can find one, definitely pick it up. Like if you like this Bible, you might be able to find one on eBay. Maybe, I highly doubt anybody has it on Amazon. It probably would be more of an eBay type thing. Trying to see if there's a specific name for you guys. I don't think there is, though. I have the box. I should have got the box. But yeah, it's a single column reference Bible, paragraph style from Thomas Nelson. And they don't make this in the King James right now. So you can't find a King James Thomas Nelson that's paragraph style in single column. They have the double column paragraph, which is a really cool Bible, but they don't have this edition at all in the King James. And the thing I love about this is that now that Thomas Nelson has come out with their new font, you kind of go back to the older fonts that like Holman and Thomas Nelson had, and you kind of actually realize how much of an appreciation you had for him that you didn't at the time. So I did this with Holman as well. If you look at I did a review on the Holman large print personal size reference Bible in brown goatskin, which was it's a very cheap goatskin, but still it's a great Bible. That has their old font that they used from essentially the 1990s to about 2014, maybe up to 2017, and they switched that more bolded font. And I read that old one. I was like, wow, that font actually was good. The only thing I thought with them is they needed to increase their paper quality because the ghosting was kind of bad, but the font was pretty good. And I felt it with Thomas Nelson. Thomas Nelson had some pretty good fonts before they did their comfort print. And don't get me wrong, everybody raves about it for a reason. It is a great font, bolded, very easy to read. The spacing is perfect. So that's why I really love the single column. But sometimes it seems like the King James gets stuck in this format where it's always bolded, it's always big, it's always bulky and chunky. So it's always cool to see when there's a more modern font, a more digital font that brings the King James really into our time. because it's like people, I feel like font wise, people just want to leave it back like in the 1600s, and I understand that's its character. It's old, it's timeless, and in many sense, I love those fonts a lot, and in many ways, those fonts are better than modern fonts as well. But every once in a while, it is good to have an edition that's like doesn't look like you're stuck in Shakespeare's time. So I really do love the fact that they did this more modern, updated font, and really wish they would bring something like that back. So again, guys, sorry I won't have any links for where to get this or any advice where to get this. I mean, your best bet's probably eBay, or maybe a local Christian bookstore. If they can bring in, people can bring in like used Bibles or something, you may be able to find one like that. I actually found one of these years ago, genuine leather, at a Christian bookstore, but it was all written up in, and I didn't buy it then. I kind of kicked myself for that because it was a very nice edition of it, and I had never found one after that point, and it has been like probably 10 to 12 years since then. And so finding this in the bookshop was just like a blast. So been reading through this thing. It's really cool to read through, easy to read through. I find myself reading more when I read in this setting. So definitely encourage you guys, if you can find one, check it out. But I hope this review has been at least cool for you guys to see. Let me know what you think about the fonts. I'm always interested to see what fonts people like. Again, I'm a fan of the comfort print, but I also like some of these older fonts that Thomas Nelson had. So anyways, hope you guys have a great day. Take care and God bless.